My name is Eleanor Voss, and I was 34 the afternoon my brother stood up at our mother's wake and told the whole room I wasn't getting a dime, he said, right before the caterer had even cleared the coffee cups. He didn't whisper it. Marcus never whispered anything he thought made him look powerful. He said it loud enough for the cousins by the window to hear, loud enough for our mother's old bridge partners to set down their plates. Mom left everything to the family, he said, looking right at me, not to the hired help. That's what he'd taken to calling me by then. Hired help, as if the 4 years I'd spent moving into her house, managing her medications, and sitting up with her through 3 hospital stays had been a job I'd applied for instead of a daughter doing what a daughter does. I didn't argue with him in that room. I didn't have to, because 6 weeks earlier, in a lawyer's office 2 towns over, our mother had already told me exactly what she thought I was owed, and none of them knew it yet. Welcome to Nightmare Theater, where we tell calm, true-to-life tales about the moment someone finally stops shrinking to fit a seat they were never offered. If you've ever been the one who showed up while everyone else showed up for the will, this one's for you. Drop a comment and stay till the end. My mother, Ruth Voss, raised 3 kids on a school teacher's salary in a house with 1 bathroom and a furnace that only worked if you hit it in the right spot. Marcus was the oldest and the loudest, the one who always had a plan that needed funding. My sister Delphine came second, soft-spoken and easily led, mostly by Marcus. I came last, and somewhere along the way, I became the one who called every Sunday, who drove the 90 minutes each way without being asked, who learned to read the particular silence in my mother's voice that meant something was wrong before she'd admit it herself. When she got sick, 4 years before that wake, Marcus sent flowers. Delphine sent a card. I sent nothing because I was already there, already moving my things into the guest room down the hall from hers, already learning the names of every pill and what time each one needed to be taken. I kept my job by working nights and driving back before her morning coffee. I did not do this because I expected anything. I did it because she was my mother, and there was no one else standing in that hallway. Marcus started visiting more in her last year, which should have comforted me, and instead put a cold feeling in my stomach I couldn't name yet. He'd take her for drives. He'd bring paperwork just to look over. He mentioned, more than once, in a voice dressed up as casual concern, that the house was getting to be too much for one person to manage alone. Maybe it was time to think about what made sense long term. I watched him work on her the way you watch weather roll in from a distance. Slow, and then all at once. What Marcus never understood about our mother was that she'd spent 40 years grading essays for a living. She could smell a thesis a student hadn't earned from 3 sentences in. She knew exactly what he was building toward, long before he finished the sentence. 6 weeks before she died, on a Tuesday I nearly missed because I'd almost called in sick. She asked me to drive her somewhere and not mention it to my brother. I assumed a doctor's appointment. Instead, she directed me downtown to a law office I'd never heard of, where a woman named Constance Ferris greeted my mother like an old friend, and greeted me like someone she'd been expecting for a while. My mother, it turned out, had been coming there quietly for over a year. She told me, hands folded the way they always were when she meant something completely, that the house would go to Marcus and Delphine in the will, split straight down the middle, exactly the way she'd always let them assume it would. They'll fight over that house, she said, almost fondly, the way they fought over everything since they were small. Let them have that fight. It'll keep them busy. But the will, she told me, was never where she'd put what actually mattered. 2 years earlier, without telling a soul, she'd moved her retirement accounts, her savings, and the small rental property she'd bought and quietly paid off in her 50s into an irrevocable trust. I was named sole trustee and sole beneficiary, the trust set to fully vest the moment she died. Not through probate, not through a will anyone could contest, not through anything a lawyer of Marcus's could ever get near. He's going to make a scene, she said, patting my hand the way she used to when I was small and afraid of thunder. Let him. By the time he understands what happened, it'll already be closed. That's the whole point of a trust. Ellie, it doesn't argue with anyone. It just finishes. I asked her why she'd never told me before. She looked at me for a long moment and said the truest sentence anyone in that family ever said to me. Because you never once did any of this hoping to be paid for it. And I wasn't going to let you find out about the money before you found out that I saw you. I carried that sentence for 6 weeks like a stone sewn into my coat pocket. Through the funeral, through the flowers, through Marcus's phone calls about getting the estate sorted quickly, through Delphine's nervous texts asking if I thought Marcus was being fair about the house. I told neither of them. I'd learned enough from watching my mother to know that some truths only land properly if you let a person walk all the way to the edge of their own assumption first. So I let the living room happen. I let Marcus stand in the middle of it, 12 days after we buried her, and announced to a room of people who'd known our family for decades that I was getting nothing, that everything was going to the family, meaning him and Delphine, meaning the house he'd already started measuring for a renovation neither of us had been asked about. I let Delphine nod along beside him, the way she always did. I didn't correct him. I refilled the coffee pot and asked if anyone needed a warm-up. The actual reading happened 4 days later, in Constance Ferris's office, exactly the way our mother had planned it. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early with a legal pad and the expression of a man who'd already spent the money in his head. Constance read the will first, precisely as written. The house split between Marcus and Delphine. A modest cash sum to each. Nothing dramatic enough to raise an eyebrow anywhere in that room. Marcus actually smiled. Then Constance closed that folder and opened a second one. "There's a trust as well," she said, in the same even voice she'd probably used on 100 families before ours, established 2 years ago. "I need to walk you both through what it means for the estate." I watched my brother's face while she explained it. The accounts, the property, all of it already vested, already transferred, already legally mine from the second our mother's heart stopped, untouched by anything in the will he'd just finished celebrating. I watched the exact moment the math landed, the way you watch a wave finally reach the shore after minutes of pretending it isn't coming. "This isn't right," he said. "She wouldn't have done this without telling me." "She told me," I said. It was the first thing I'd said in that room all afternoon. 6 weeks before she died, she told me she wanted you to have the fight over the house because it would keep you busy while the part that actually mattered finished closing without you. Delphine started to cry. Not for me, I think, but for the version of our mother she was only now beginning to understand she'd never fully known. Marcus didn't cry. He argued with Constance for 20 more minutes about contesting a trust that had been airtight for 2 years. And Constance, patient as a woman who has had this exact conversation more times than she could count, explained precisely, calmly, why he wouldn't win. I didn't gloat. I've watched too many families burn down over money to mistake gloating for anything other than spite in a nicer coat. I gathered my folder, thanked Constance, and drove back to the house one last time to pack the rest of my things out of the guest room I'd slept in for 4 years. The one nobody in that family had ever once offered to help me clean. Marcus didn't speak to me again for the better part of a year. When he finally called, it wasn't quite an apology. It was closer to an accounting, a careful, roundabout attempt to understand where the money had really gone, as if understanding the mechanics of it might somehow undo the outcome. I let him talk. I didn't need anything from that call. I'd already received the only thing that mattered. 6 weeks before she died, in a small office downtown, hearing my mother say the sentence I will carry for the rest of my life. "I saw you." What I learned wasn't really about the trust, or the house, or who ended up with what. It was something my mother understood long before I did, that the people who truly see what you do rarely announce it while you're doing it. They simply make sure that when everyone else finally decides what they think you deserve, there's already an answer waiting that nobody can argue with. If someone in your life has been quietly deciding your worth by what you never asked for, take this as your sign. Keep showing up anyway. Being seen doesn't always arrive loudly, but it does arrive. If this one hit home, share it with someone who's been the one who stayed. Drop a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.